At family game night, my cousin said I was adopted. The words hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. The Monopoly board blurred in front of me as 23 years of my life suddenly felt like a lie. My cousin Jessica's smirk told me everything. I needed to know. This wasn't just another one of her cruel jokes. This was real. And if you're watching this, please hit that like button and subscribe, because what I'm about to tell you will shake you to your core. Leave a comment if you've ever discovered something that changed everything you thought you knew about yourself, because I need to know I'm not alone in this. It was supposed to be just another boring Friday night at my parents' house. Mom had insisted on family game night, something she'd been pushing for months, saying we needed to reconnect as a family. I should have known something was off when she kept fidgeting with her wedding ring and avoiding eye contact all evening. The Zeit. Living room was packed with the usual suspects. My parents, my Aunt Carol and Uncle Mike, and their daughter Jessica. My 25-year-old cousin who had made it her life's mission to make mine miserable since we were kids. We were scattered around the coffee table, playing what was supposed to be a friendly game of Monopoly. "Your turn, Amber," Dad said, sliding the dice across to me. His voice sounded strained, like he was forcing normalcy into every word. I picked up the dice, feeling the familiar weight of them in my palm. Jessica was sitting directly across from me, and I could feel her eyes boring into me with that look she got when she was planning something particularly nasty. "You know what's funny?" Jessica said suddenly, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "I was looking through old family photos with Mom last week." Aunt Carol shot her a sharp look. "Jessica, not now." "What?" "I'm just making conversation." Jessica's smile widened and my stomach dropped. I knew that smile. It was the same one she wore when she told the entire school that I wet my pants in 3rd grade, which, for the record, was completely made up. "What photos?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady as I rolled the dice. Double sixes? Great. Even the universe was mocking me. "Oh, just some old ones from when we were little." Jessica leaned back in her chair, clearly enjoying herself. "It's amazing how different we all looked back then. You especially, Amber." Mom's face had gone completely white. She was gripping her water glass so tightly I thought it might shatter. "Jessica, that's enough," Uncle Mike warned, but his voice lacked conviction. "Enough of what?" "I'm just saying it's interesting how Amber doesn't really look like anyone in the family. I mean, look at her. Those green eyes. That auburn hair. The rest of us are all blonde with brown eyes." My heart started pounding. It was true. I'd always been the odd one out physically in our family, but I'd never really thought about it seriously before. Kids don't question these things. They just accept that sometimes genetics work in mysterious ways. "Genetics can be weird," I said, moving my piece around the board mechanically. "I probably got Grandma's coloring or something." Jessica laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Which grandma would that be exactly?" Grandma Rose had black hair and blue eyes. Grandma Helen was blonde. Neither of them had green eyes or auburn hair. The room fell silent except for the ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner. I looked around at my family members, searching their faces for some kind of reassurance, some sign that Jessica was just being her usual horrible self. Instead, I saw guilt. Pure, unadulterated guilt written across every single face. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Mom set down her water glass with shaking hands. "Jessica, you have no right." "No right to what?" "To tell the truth?" Jessica's voice rose. "She's 23 years old, Aunt Linda. Don't you think she deserves to know?" "Know what?" I stood up so fast that I knocked over the Monopoly board, sending houses and hotels flying across the coffee table. "What am I supposed to know?" Dad reached for me, but I stepped back. "Sweetheart, sit down, please." "Don't tell me to sit down. Tell me what she's talking about." My voice was getting louder, more desperate. "What truth? What don't I know?" Jessica looked positively gleeful now. You really don't know, do you? They never told you. Told me what? Jessica, stop this right now, Aunt Carol hissed. But her daughter was on a roll. You're adopted, Amber. You're not actually their daughter. The words hung in the air like a toxic cloud. I felt like I couldn't breathe. The familiar living room, with its cream-colored walls covered in family photos, the worn leather couch where I'd spent countless hours doing homework, the fireplace where we hung our stockings every Christmas, suddenly felt foreign. Like I was seeing it through a stranger's eyes. That's not true. I looked at my parents, waiting for them to deny it, to tell Jessica she was crazy, to laugh it off like the cruel joke it had to be. Tell her, that's not true. Mom's eyes filled with tears. Dad wouldn't even look at me. Mom, my voice cracked. Tell me she's lying. The silence stretched on for what felt like hours but was probably only seconds. Finally, Mom spoke, her voice barely audible. We were going to tell you. The floor felt like it was disappearing beneath my feet. What? We were going to tell you when you were older, but then time just... We thought maybe it would be better if you never knew. You were so happy, and we were so happy, and it felt like you were always meant to be our daughter anyway. I sank back down onto the couch, my legs suddenly unable to support me. This isn't real. This can't be real. Honey, please listen to me. Mom moved to sit beside me, but I flinched away from her touch. You are our daughter. You've been our daughter since you were 3 months old. We love you more than anything in this world. 3 months old? The words felt foreign in my mouth. I was 3 months old when you got me? Dad finally looked up, his eyes red-rimmed. Your birth mother. She was very young. She couldn't take care of you. We'd been trying to have a baby for years, and then you came into our lives, and it was like a miracle. So everything I know about my life is a lie? I could hear my voice getting higher, more hysterical. My birth certificate? My baby photos? The stories you told me about bringing me home from the hospital? The photos are real, Mom said quickly. We took pictures from the day we brought you home, and the birth certificate, well, that's how adoption works. It shows us as your parents, because we are your parents. Jessica was sitting back in her chair with her arms crossed, looking satisfied with the chaos she'd created. I can't believe you guys never told her. That's so messed up. Shut up, Jessica. The words exploded out of me with such force that everyone jumped. Just shut up. You don't get to sit there and judge anyone when you're the one who just destroyed my entire life for fun. I didn't destroy anything, Jessica said defensively. I just told you the truth. Would you rather have lived your whole life not knowing? Yes, I screamed. Yes, I would rather not know. I was happy. I had a family. I knew who I was. You still have a family, Dad said quietly. We're still your family. Nothing has changed except now you know the whole story. Everything has changed. I stood up again, pacing now because I couldn't sit still. Don't you understand? Everything I thought I knew about myself is wrong. My entire identity is based on a lie. It's not a lie, Mom pleaded. We are your parents. We raised you. We love you. We've been there for every skinned knee and heartbreak and triumph. That's not fake. I stopped pacing and stared at her. But you're not my real parents. The words hit her like a physical blow. I could see her crumble, but I couldn't bring myself to care. My whole world was falling apart. We are your real parents, Dad said firmly. Biology doesn't make someone a parent. Love does. Commitment does. Being there every single day does. Then where are they? I asked. My biological parents? Are they alive? Do they want to know me? Do I have siblings? Do I have a whole other family out there that I don't even know about? The room fell silent again. Mom and Dad exchanged a look that made my blood run cold. What? I demanded. What was that look? What aren't you telling me now? Amber, maybe we should talk about this privately, Mom said. This isn't the place. No, we're talking about it now. I'm done with secrets. I could feel tears streaming down my face, but I didn't care. Tell me about my biological parents. Tell me everything. Dad cleared his throat. Your birth mother's name was Sarah. She was 17 when you were born. She wasn't married, and her family, they weren't supportive. And my father? Another look between my parents. This one lasted longer. Mom, I swear to God, if you don't tell me. We don't know who your biological father is, Dad said quickly. Sarah? She wouldn't say. She said it was complicated. Complicated how? We don't know, sweetheart. She wouldn't talk about it. I felt like I was drowning in questions. Is she alive? Sarah? Can I contact her? The silence was deafening. Oh my God. I pressed my hands to my mouth. She's dead, isn't she? No. Mom said quickly. No, she's not dead. At least not as far as we know. Then why won't you answer me? Where is she? Dad stood up and walked to the window, his back to all of us. She asked us to promise never to try to find her or let you find her. She said she wanted a clean break. She wanted to move on with her life, and she wanted you to move on with yours. That was 23 years ago. People change their minds. Maybe she wants to know me now. Maybe she does, Mom said softly. But we promised her, Amber. We gave her our word. I felt a surge of rage so intense it scared me. You promised her? What about me? What about what I might want? Did anyone think to consider that maybe I'd want? To know where I came from? You were a baby, Dad said, still facing the window. We had to make the best decision we could with the information we had. The best decision for who? For you? Because it was easier to pretend I was really yours? Dad spun around and I was shocked to see tears in his eyes. The best decision for you. We hoped that you would never need to know, that our love would be enough. Well, it's not enough. The words came out harsher than I intended, and I saw Mom flinch. I need to know who I am. I need to know where I came from. Jessica had been unusually quiet during this exchange, but now she spoke up again. There's something else. Everyone turned to stare at her. Even through my rage and heartbreak, I could see that she looked uncomfortable now, like maybe she was starting to regret opening this particular can of worms. Jessica, don't, Aunt Carol warned. What something else? I demanded. What now? Jessica looked at her mother, then at my parents, then finally at me. The reason I know about the adoption, it's because Mom and Dad have known Sarah for years. She's what? Jessica took a deep breath. She's someone you know, Amber. She never really went away. The room felt like it was spinning. Someone I know? Sarah, my birth mother, is someone I know? What do you mean, someone I know? My voice came out as barely a whisper. How is that possible? Jessica looked like she wanted to disappear into the couch cushions, but it was too late to take it back now. I probably shouldn't have said that. But you did say it. I was on my feet again, my hands shaking. You can't just drop a bomb like that and then act like you didn't mean to. Who is she? Aunt Carol stood up abruptly. Jessica, we're leaving. Now? No! I blocked their path to the door. Nobody is leaving until someone tells me the truth. All of it! Amber, sweetheart, please sit down, Dad said, but his voice sounded hollow, defeated. Don't you dare tell me to sit down, not when you've been lying to me for 23 years. I whirled around to face Jessica. Tell me who she is, right now. Jessica looked at her parents, then at mine, her face pale. I can't. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. Tell me! The scream tore from my throat, raw and desperate. The silence that followed was broken by Mom's quiet sobbing. She had her face in her hands, her whole body shaking. "It's Mrs. Patterson," she whispered through her tears. The words hit me like a freight train. "What?" "Sarah Patterson. Your birth mother is Sarah Patterson." My legs gave out completely. I collapsed onto the couch, my mind reeling. Mrs. Patterson, my high school English teacher. The woman who had encouraged my love of writing. The woman who had stayed after school to help me with college applications. The woman who had hugged me at graduation and told me how proud she was. The woman who had been at every major milestone of my life, watching from the sidelines, knowing exactly who I was while I had no idea who she was to me. "Mrs. Patterson," I repeated, my voice hollow. "My English teacher is my mother." "Birth mother," Dad corrected quietly, but I barely heard him. The memories came flooding back in painful, vivid detail. How Mrs. Patterson always seemed to take special interest in me. How she knew things about my preferences that I'd never told her. How she would get this strange, sad look in her eyes sometimes when she thought I wasn't watching. "She taught me for 3 years," I said, more to myself than to anyone else. 3 years. She graded my papers. Oh God, she came to my graduation party. "Amber," Mom started. "She was here, in this house. She's been here for birthdays and holidays and—" I looked up at my parents with horror. "You invited her. You invited my birth mother to my graduation party and you never told me." "She asked if she could come," Mom said through her tears. "She said she just wanted to see you celebrate. She was so proud of you." "Proud of me?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "She gave me away as a baby and then spent years watching me grow up like some kind of a voyeur." "It wasn't like that," Dad said firmly. "When we moved to town when you were 5, we had no idea Sarah lived here. It was a complete coincidence that she ended up being your teacher." "Coincidence?" I stood up, pacing again. "You expect me to believe it was just coincidence?" "It was a small town, Amber. There were only 2 elementary schools and 1 high school. The chances were actually pretty high that your paths would cross eventually. And when you found out? When you realized my teacher was the woman who gave birth to me? What then?" Mom wiped her eyes with a tissue. "We panicked. We didn't know what to do. Sarah was just as shocked as we were when she realized who you were." "How did she realize? Your last name, your age, your birthday?" "She put it together pretty quickly. I felt sick. So she knew. The whole time she was teaching me, she knew." "Yes," Dad said quietly. "And you all decided to just—" "What? Pretend it wasn't happening?" "We talked," Mom said. "The 3 of us. We agreed that it would be too confusing and potentially harmful to tell you while you were still a child. Sarah thought it would be better for you if you never knew." "Sarah thought," I repeated bitterly. "What about what I might think? What I might want?" "You were 10 years old when she first started teaching you," Dad pointed out. "You weren't old enough to make that kind of decision." "But I'm 23 now. I've been old enough for years. Why didn't anyone tell me when I turned 18? Or when I graduated? Or when I got my first job? Or when I moved out? Or any other time in the past 5 years when I was clearly an adult?" The room fell silent again. I could see the guilt written across every face, and it made me even angrier. "Because you were scared," I said, answering my own question. "You were scared I'd choose her over you." "That's not," Mom started. "Yes, it is. That's exactly what this is about. You were so terrified that I might want a relationship with my biological mother that you decided to just hide her from me forever." "We were protecting you," Dad said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Protecting me from what? From knowing where I came from? From having questions answered? From having a choice?" I thought about all the times I'd wondered about my birth parents, all the nights I'd lain awake as a teenager, staring at the ceiling and wondering if my biological mother ever thought about me, if she regretted giving me up, if she was happy, if she was alive. And all that time, she was right there. Grading my essays, helping me with college applications, watching me grow up from a front row seat while I remained completely in the dark. Does she have other children? I asked suddenly. The question seemed to surprise everyone. Does she? I pressed. Mom nodded reluctantly. 2, a son and a daughter. My heart clenched. How old? Her son is 19. Her daughter is 16. Younger than me. Sarah had kept them. Whatever circumstances had forced her to give me up, they hadn't prevented her from raising 2 other children. So she got married, I said. It wasn't really a question. Yes, to David Patterson. You might remember him from school functions. I did remember him. A tall, quiet man who worked at the bank. He'd always seemed nice enough, though I'd never really paid much attention to him. When did they get married? Another uncomfortable silence. Mom? When did Sarah marry David? About 2 years after she had you, Mom said quietly. The implication hit me like a slap. She couldn't keep me because she wasn't married, but then she got married and had 2 more kids that she did keep. It's more complicated than that, honey, Izzo. It? Because it seems pretty simple to me. She gave away her first child and kept the rest. Amber, you don't know the whole story, Dad said. Sarah was in a very difficult situation when she was pregnant with you. What kind of situation? My parents exchanged another one of those looks, and I felt my patience snap completely. I swear to God, if you give me one more mysterious look, instead of just answering my question, I'm going to lose my mind. Her parents kicked her out when they found out she was pregnant, Mom said quickly. She had nowhere to go, no money, no support. She was living in a shelter when she contacted the adoption agency. What about my biological father? Where was he? The silence stretched on for so long that I thought no one was going to answer. We don't know, Dad finally said. Sarah never told us who he was. She just said it was complicated and that he couldn't be involved. Couldn't or wouldn't. We don't know. I felt like I was going to explode from frustration. How can you not know? Didn't you ask questions? Didn't you want to know about the father of the child you were adopting? Of course we asked, Mom said. But Sarah was very clear that she didn't want to discuss it. The adoption agency said that sometimes birth mothers prefer to keep certain details private, and that we had to respect that. So you just accepted it? We were so grateful to be getting you that we didn't want to push too hard and risk her changing her mind, Dad admitted. The honesty of that statement stung more than I expected. They had been so desperate for a child that they hadn't pushed. For information that might have helped me understand my identity later in life. What if he was married? I asked suddenly. What if she had an affair with a married man and that's why it was complicated? We don't know, Mom repeated. What if he was abusive? What if she was raped? Amber, please, Dad said. You're torturing yourself with speculation. I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to figure out why my birth mother felt she could give me away but not even tell anyone who my father was. Jessica, who had been silent through most of this exchange, suddenly spoke up. Maybe she did tell someone. We all turned to stare at her. What do you mean? I asked. Jessica looked uncomfortable again. I mean, maybe she told someone, but not your parents. Maybe someone else knows who your father is. Like, who? I don't know. Her parents? Her friends from back then? Maybe even Mr. Patterson? The idea that there were people out there who knew things about my origins that I didn't made me feel sick all over again. I need to talk to her, I said suddenly. I need to talk to Sarah. Amber, I don't think that's a good idea right now, Mom said quickly. You're upset. Maybe you should take some time to process all of this first. Process what? The fact that my entire family has been lying to me my whole life? The fact that my birth mother has been watching me grow up like some kind of science experiment? The fact that I have siblings I've never met and a biological father whose identity is apparently some big mystery. I headed for the door. "Where are you going?" Dad called after me. "To get some answers," I said without turning around. "Amber, wait!" Mom was on her feet now. "Please don't do this when you're so emotional. You could say something you'll regret." I stopped with my hand on the doorknob and turned back to face them. "You know what I regret?" "I regret trusting you. I regret believing that you would always be honest with me. I regret thinking that families don't keep secrets from each other. We are your family," Dad said desperately. "We will always be your family, no matter what." "Are we? Because right now, I don't know what we are. I don't know what anything is anymore." I opened the door and stepped out into the cool evening air, my mind racing. I needed to see Sarah Patterson. I needed to look her in the eye and ask her why. Why she gave me up. Why she never told me who she was. Why she thought she had the right to watch me grow up from the shadows without giving me the choice to know. Her. But as I got in my car and started the engine, one question burned brighter than all the others. Who was my father? And why was his identity worth protecting more than my right to know where I came from? I was about to find out that some secrets are kept for good reason, and some truths are more devastating than any lie. I sat in my car outside Sarah Patterson's house for 20 minutes, trying to work up the courage to knock on her door. It was a modest 2-story colonial with a white picket fence and a garden that was clearly well-loved. Through the lit windows, I could see glimpses of a normal family life, someone moving around in the kitchen, the blue glow of a television in the living room. My siblings were in there. 2 people who shared my DNA, who had grown up with the mother I'd never known was mine. The thought made my chest tight with a mixture of longing and resentment. When I finally forced myself out of the car and walked up the front path, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely ring the doorbell. The sound of footsteps approached, and then the door opened to reveal David Patterson, tall, graying at the temples, wearing a confused smile that faded the moment he saw my face. "Amber?" He glanced over his shoulder nervously. "What are you— Is everything okay?" "I need to talk to Sarah," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Please." His face went completely pale. She's not— Maybe this isn't the best time." "David? Who is it?" Sarah's voice called from somewhere inside the house, and my heart nearly stopped. It was the same warm, familiar voice that had encouraged me through high school, that had praised my writing and helped me believe in myself. But now it sounded different. Now it was the voice of the woman who had given birth to me, and then watched me grow up without ever telling me the truth. David looked like he wanted to disappear. It's Amber Walsh." The silence that followed felt endless. Then I heard footsteps, quick and light, and suddenly Sarah was there in the doorway. She looked exactly the same as she had at my graduation party 2 years ago. Auburn hair like mine pulled back in a messy bun, green eyes identical to the ones I saw in the mirror every morning, wearing a simple blue sweater and jeans. Looking at her now, knowing what I knew, I couldn't believe I'd never seen the resemblance before. We had the same nose, the same stubborn chin, the same way of tilting our heads when we were thinking. "Amber," she breathed, her hand flying to her throat. "What are you doing here?" "I know," I said simply. "I know who you are." Sarah's face crumpled, and she gripped the doorframe for support. "Oh God, who told you?" "Does it matter? What matters is that you've been lying to me for years." David stepped forward protectively. "Amber, I think you should—" "No," Sarah said quietly, placing a hand on his arm. "It's okay. She has every right to be angry." She stepped back from the door. "Come in, please." I followed them into a living room that felt both foreign and familiar. The furniture was comfortable but worn. the kind of home that prioritized function over form. Family photos covered the mantel, photos of Sarah with David and two teenagers I'd never met, but who were unmistakably my half-siblings. "Kids, go upstairs," Sarah said to the teenagers who had appeared in the doorway, curious about our late-night visitor. "Mom, what's going on?" the girl asked. She was about 16 with Sarah's coloring but David's facial structure. "Please, Emma, just give us some privacy." The boy, who had to be 19-year-old Marcus, was staring at me with undisguised curiosity. "You're the teacher who came to Mom's retirement party last year, right?" "I'm not a teacher," I said, my voice sounding strange to my own ears. "I'm your sister." The words hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Emma's mouth fell open. Marcus looked between Sarah and me with growing understanding. "Mom?" Emma's voice was small, confused. Sarah closed her eyes, tears streaming down. Her face. "Go upstairs, please. I'll explain everything later." The teenagers reluctantly disappeared, but I could hear their whispered conversation floating down from the staircase. My heart ached for them. Their world was about to be turned. Upside down, too, and they hadn't asked for any of this. "Sit down," Sarah said, gesturing to the couch. "I'd rather stand." She nodded, wrapping her arms around herself like she was cold. "I always knew this day would come. I hoped maybe it wouldn't." "Why?" The question came out harsh, angry. "Why did you hope I'd never find out? Did you think it would be easier for everyone if I just never knew where I came from?" "I thought it would be easier for you," she said quietly. "You had parents who loved you. You were happy." "I didn't want to confuse or hurt you." "Confuse me? You've been my teacher for 3 years. You've been to my house. You know my parents. How is any of that not confusing?" "I never meant for it to happen like that," Sarah said, sinking into a chair. "When David and I moved here, I had no idea Linda and Robert lived in this town. When you showed up in my classroom and I realized who you were. God, Amber, it nearly broke me." "But you didn't say anything." "What was I supposed to say? Hello, I'm the woman who gave birth to you and then gave you away? You were 10 years old. You could have told my parents. I did tell them. We had long conversations about what to do. In the end, we all agreed that it would be better for everyone if we just let sleeping dogs lie." I laughed bitterly. "Better? For everyone? Or better for you? Did it make you feel better to get to watch me grow up without actually having to take responsibility for me?" Sarah flinched like I'd slapped her. It wasn't like that. Wasn't it? You got to be the cool teacher who helped me with my college applications. You got to feel proud when I graduated. You got to be part of all my achievements, without any of the hard work of actually raising me. You think it was easy?" Sarah's voice rose, and for a moment, I caught a glimpse of the steel I remembered from when she dealt with difficult students. "You think it was easy to see you every day and not be able to tell you how proud I was, how much I loved you, how much I regretted giving you up every single day of my life. If you regretted it so much, why didn't you try to get me back?" "Because I had signed papers, because you had parents who adored you, because by the time I was in a position to raise a child, you were already 5 years old and calling someone else mom." We stared at each other across the living room, both breathing hard. David had retreated to the kitchen, presumably to give us privacy, but I could see him hovering anxiously in the doorway. "I need to know about my father," I said finally. Sarah went very still. "Amber, no more secrets, no more lies. I need to know who he is. Some things are better left alone." "That's not your choice to make anymore. I'm 23 years old. I have the right to know who my biological father is." Sarah was quiet for a long moment, staring at her hands folded in her lap. When she finally looked up, her eyes were filled with a pain so deep it took my breath away. "Your father was my high school English teacher," she said quietly. The words hit me like ice water. What? Mr. Harrison, James Harrison. He was 28. I was 17 and in his AP literature class. I felt the room spinning around me. He was your teacher? Yes. And you had a relationship with him? Sarah's laugh was bitter and broken, if you can call it that. He told me I was mature for my age, special, different from the other students. He said he'd never met anyone who understood literature the way I did. My stomach turned. Sarah. I thought I was in love with him. I thought we were going to be together. I thought once I graduated, we'd make it official. Her voice was getting smaller, more fragile. I was so naive. What happened when you told him you were pregnant? He denied it was his baby. Said I must have been with other boys and was trying to pin it on him. When I threatened to tell the principal, he said no one would believe me. And he was right. I was a troubled kid from a broken home. He was a respected teacher with a spotless reputation. I sank down onto the couch, feeling sick. So you never told anyone the truth? I told my parents. They said I was a liar and a slut and that they wouldn't have me bringing shame on the family. They kicked me out that same night. What about the adoption agency? What about my parents? Didn't you tell them? Sarah shook her head. I was so ashamed, and I was terrified that if I told the truth, somehow it would come back to hurt you. What if people found out and treated you differently because of how you were conceived? So you just let him get away with it? What choice did I have? It was 1980. Things were different then. A student accusing a teacher of that. It would have been career suicide for him and social suicide for me. And I had no proof. It was just my word against his. I thought about all the times I'd complained about unfair teachers or difficult classes, all the times Sarah had listened and offered advice. She'd been protecting me from a truth she thought would hurt me, but also from a legacy she was ashamed of. Is he still alive? I asked. No. He died about 10 years ago. Heart attack. Did he ever know about me? Sarah was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. I don't know. After you were born and I placed you for adoption, I never spoke to him again. But sometimes I wondered if he ever put two and two together. If he ever looked at the dates and realized. He was my father, I said, more to myself than to her. My father was a predator who took advantage of a teenage girl. You are not defined by how you were conceived, Sarah said fiercely. You are smart and talented and kind and strong, and none of that has anything to do with him. But it has everything to do with you, I said, looking at her with new understanding. You gave me up because you couldn't look at me without seeing him. No, Sarah said quickly. It wasn't about that. Wasn't it? Every time you looked at me, you were reminded of what he did to you. You were never just a reminder of him, Sarah said, her voice breaking. You were always my daughter, my beautiful, perfect daughter. I gave you up because I loved you, not because I didn't. That doesn't make sense. I was 17 and homeless and traumatized. I had no money, no family support, no education beyond high school. What kind of life could I have given you? Your parents could give you everything I couldn't. Stability, security, love, opportunities. They could give you the life you deserved. And then you met David, and suddenly you could give that life to other children. Sarah closed her eyes. By the time I met David, you were already 2 years old. You had parents who adored you. You were thriving. What was I supposed to do? Tear you away from the only family you'd ever known just to satisfy my own longing to be your mother? I understood her logic, but it didn't make the pain any less sharp. I need some time, I said, standing up. I need to think about all of this. Will you come back? Will you give me a chance to be part of your life now? I looked at this woman who had given birth to me, who had loved me enough to give me away, who had watched me grow up from afar for years. She wasn't the villain I'd painted her as in my mind during the drive over here. She was just a teenager who had made an impossible choice with no good options. I don't know, I said honestly. Right now, I don't know anything. As I walked toward the door, Sarah called after me. Amber? I turned back. For what it's worth, not a single day has gone by that I haven't thought about you. That I haven't wondered if you were happy, if you were safe, if you knew how much you were wanted, even if it couldn't be by me. I nodded, not trusting my voice, and let myself out. The drive home was a blur of tears and conflicting emotions. When I pulled into my parents' driveway, I could see them waiting in the living room window. They rushed out to meet me before I'd even turned off the engine. Are you okay? Mom asked, pulling me into a fierce hug. I will be, I said, and for the first time all night I meant it. We have a lot to talk about, but I will be. Because the truth was messy and painful and complicated, but it was mine. And now that I knew where I came from, both the good and the bad, I could finally figure out where I wanted to go. My name is Amber Walsh, and I'm adopted. But I'm also loved by more people than I ever realized. And sometimes that's enough to build a life on. If this story touched you in any way, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and leave me a comment. I'd love to hear from others who have walked this difficult path of family secrets and unexpected truths. Because none of us are alone in this complicated mess of being human.